kinaksem dol kake mo faseda.
Everyone, welcome to Talking in Stations Midweek. I am your host, Ron USMC, and my colleague and buddy, Silver Suspiria. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Ron. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
Well, I can hear you, but you sound a little low to me. Let's see.
Drop your mic. All right.
Oh, barely hear me?
How about now?
How about now? It's the midweek, baby. This is the midweek.
Good. All right.
All right.
Good. All
So,
right.
not much. Not much has been happening.
Good.
It's pretty boring, right? Pretty boring.
Not much.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's been a hot
crazy
house
week
today, dude. A hot house. So, do you want to talk about Hypernet first, or do you want to talk about the patch first?
That's up to you, big buddy.
All right. Well, let's get into the Hypernet. So,
Okay.
news article today that they released this new sort of transaction marketplace called Hypernet. I went on to Sissy, played around with it. I was streaming for 2 or 3 hours, and it reminds me of the old Summer Blink. Did you ever play that back in the day?
I never did, Ron. I always looked at it and then it was like, oh boy, that's going to get me in trouble. But I did very much like the concept.
I never played it, but I remember thinking that it was super. It was so well made, right?
Oh, yeah.
It had such a great concept, and it was just a lot of web development time. And I just remember thinking that, it was very well made. But I'm not much of a gambler because, I just lose. I might as well just, take the money out back and just set it on fire, right?
Yeah, that's like me.
So, released Hypernet today. So I immediately went on to Sissy and checked it out. And basically, it is a raffle house, right? It's a raffle. But it's interesting because there's no, I don't know, there's no like company that is, giving out prizes and taking the money sort of thing. It's very much sort of like an enabler or like a conduit of people who have items that they want to sell that maybe people do not have the ISK to buy, right? So how it works is you put an item up for sale, up for Hypernet, and then you have to pay. The first thing you have to do is you have to pay in hyper cores, which are an extra object, right? And those CCP Rise came on and said that right now they're thinking that the exchange rate will be 10 hypercores to 1 plex, right? So the hypercores are like 350K each. You put those in, and that is the fee for the listing, right? And then there's an additional fee of 5% for the tax, and that's an ISK. If the Hypernet trade, auction, raffle is not successful, then they keep the hypercores, but you don't have to pay the tax. So each Hypernet has a 3-day expiration, and you can set it for any amount that you want. I think it was up to, I don't think it had a limit actually, if I remember right. And if you put whatever object you have and you put it up for 100 million, then it's going to ask for 5 million, the equivalent of 5 million in hypercores. And then it's going to charge you 5 million as well in ISK. So it's an additional 10%. It's pretty expensive, right? Now, the cool thing about it is that it is not region specific, so it's everywhere. And there are hyper nodes, which are basically the tickets of the raffle, right? And then you have, you can set, I think it's 8, 16, 32, 512, or 256 or 512, the number of tickets of hyper nodes that you want. And then you set the final amount that you want to get. And then it calculates how much it is per hyper node. And if you set it for 100 million and you set it for, 512, then it's whatever, 600K or 500K or 400K or whatever. And then you start the 3-day timer and you confirm it. And then it goes into the listings, right? And I think I have a screenshot actually of the
Yes, good look.
Of the listings. Okay, so this screenshot is me putting up a listing, and you'll see that I threw in an unstable shield booster, mutaplasmid. On the bottom left, you'll see the 3 boxes, and the very bottom box is the 100 million. That's the final price. The box above that is how much it is per hyper node, and the box above that is the number of tickets. So you set the number of tickets, and then you set the final price, and it'll automatically select how much each ticket is. And then in the middle column, you see that's the number of hyper nodes or hyper cores that are needed, and that's going to be 10% of the final price is the equivalent, right? If 10 of those equals 1 plex, then each one will be like 350K. The bottom gives you the final numbers as well as showing you the tax. And then on the right are stats, number completed, your average, and that sort of thing. And then after you go ahead and confirm this and you get it up, then you get to, and I have another screenshot of the browse page, and it shows all the listings. One thing I think that's kind of obvious if anyone knows me. So the top left, the filter button right above the items is the filter button, and you click that, and then you type in the item, right? But the one thing I really wanted was categories. I want skins. Like, can I just set, a link to skins? Show me all the skins.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
But like AT ships, right? Like, that's where I really see this, kind of hitting is it sort of takes away from currently, the way to sell the AT ships are, through public contract, right? But usually you'll have someone that's interested or whatever before you put it up because of all the taxes and whatnot. So I was selling Keep Stars today, and if you hit the top right button there, the refresh, it refreshes and then gives you, I guess, the newest, sure, but maybe it's the newest sort of auctions, and then you can just keep hitting refresh. Interesting things about this interaction were if you hover over an abyssal mod, it'll give you a flyout that'll show you the stats that have been changed. The number, if you look at the abyssal mod there in the middle, the number right below it is the amount of ISK per ticket, and then below it's how many tickets are being sold, and then above you'll see like a small white line, and that is the progress. So it's really interesting. I mean, have you ever bought anything, of just a lot of ISK on a contract, like a random kind of public contract?
No, actually, I haven't. Well, yes, I bought my Titan off a public contract. I did.
Oh, did you? Oh,
I
that's
did.
funny. What, like in a Keepstar? Was it just sitting in a Keepstar?
Yep, up in the popular one that's up in Losec. I don't think it's there anymore, but there was one big Titan hub there, and I actually bought my first Erebus on public contract.
Oh, that's funny. That's
Yeah,
funny.
I made like a clean
I'm,
tune, and I transferred him to ISK and all that kind of stuff.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Now the other thing is, so these have to be in an NPC station. So it won't move the items around, but they have to be in an NPC station, so you won't get locked out. And then, so I think I have another screen, and this is of the history. And I did a bunch of them. Some, finished really quickly, and some didn't. Some are still open. And it shows you how much ISK you made, that kind of thing. And I don't know, it's gambling technically or whatever, but it's like a raffle, right? I mean, that's basically what it is. It's a raffle.
Right. So
And
the question in chat is, what makes this better than public contracts? And I think you just said that, right? This is more raffle. This is more take your shot at a good deal kind of thing, right?
yep, yep. Yeah, so it's about you buy tickets, right, for X amount, and then you have a chance at winning the final thing, and the final thing will be something super super expensive or whatever. I imagine like AT ships and that kind of thing, because they're going to get the price that they ask for, or everyone will get their money back, right? Or because the money isn't actually, I think that money's being held in escrow or something, or it's like just being paused or whatever. Because if this doesn't complete at the end of 3 days, then CCP keeps the hyper cores, but there's no tax or any of that other kind of stuff is kept.
Gotcha. The other comment in chat was that you got scammed. How did you?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's actually
So
true.
so let's talk about that. Like, what's the risk here, and what happened?
So you know how I am. I'm a trusting guy, and ISD Skogel put a link, and it's just a standard kind of JITA scam where they drag the link over and then they change the text in the link, and he put because you can put a link to each one of the raffles, right? And he put it and he changed it to a raffle for a cockroach. So I didn't even think. I just clicked it and I just bought the 8 tickets for whatever they were, like 10 million or something. And I was just done. That was it. And then I was like, but it was funny as I was clicking it, because I was laughing and streaming at the same time, as I was clicking, I'm like, that looks like an ibis. And it was an ibis. It was not a cockroach. That was pretty funny.
So that's something that people should watch out for then, right? Like,
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
so what's
Yeah,
the
because
last
it is
screenshot
like a
you got
link,
here?
right? What's that?
You had one more screenshot.
Let me
I'll
see.
take a look at it, and I guess this is your history. What's the rest of the nicknames look like?
Yeah. Yeah, so so if you see in the very top of the window, there's 3. It's browse, history, and then create. The middle tab is that history. And this is me showing that, I was selling keep stars all day. And, just kind of going through the process because people were coming into the stream later. And I was just showing how to create, these. And this is on the history page. At the very top are the ones that aren't completed, and the ones at the bottom are completed. Now, I'm hovering over the buy the Hypernode button. What's really interesting is the very first raffle that I won was my own raffle that I bought 1 ticket for. So it was pretty funny.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I know that everyone's kind of up in arms, and I don't know, the sky is falling or whatever, but one thing that I really liked about what they were saying was wealth redistribution. I mean, if you think about how many people are in the position to buy like an AT ship, right? Maybe a couple hundred, 300 maybe tops. And how many of those people want to buy an AT ship? Maybe none, right? Because if they did, they would probably just buy it, right?
Sure.
You know, I don't know. It allows, you know, people to sell these really expensive items to people that, you know, to raffle them off, basically, right? And allow other people to own them, right? To be able to have a chance to buy them. I don't know. I don't see any. I don't see any. I don't see the big deal.
Well, yeah, I think like to your point, maybe it opens the market, right? If I want to sell my AT ship, like you said, there's only a few people that could even entertain buying one, and maybe they don't want the one I have, right? Like maybe I have something that doesn't interest the current market, right? But if I can put it up on
Right.
here, maybe someone who can get lucky can get it, or doesn't have quite the disc, but enough to take a shot at it would get it. Yeah, I kind of like it.
Yeah, and you know, and so obviously it's going to be hyperinflated, right? But the thing is, if it doesn't complete, then you know they keep those hyper cores, and then that's it, and everyone else keeps their money.
That's interesting. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Brings back some Summer Blink stuff. A little different take to a market, a new market, something else for somebody to play with.
Yeah, and you know what? See, the thing, you know, I think one of the problems right now is abyssal mods, right? Like, how do you value abyssal mods? And you know, one of the things that I've done is I created a little spreadsheet. Well, I mean, just like the formulas, right? The damage formulas for the gyro and the ballistic control system. And I created those formulas because, you know, of the very minute differences in the numbers, I just wanted to see which one was better than the others. And, you know, and that great site, mutaplasma.space, I think it's called, does that for you. And that's excellent. And, you know, even on that site, pricing these things is really, really difficult, right? And especially on the officer mods, right? Because an officer mod that is just slightly better isn't more valuable than a normal mod because it can't be rolled again, right? So there's always that possibility that it could be rolled to something better. So one thing I really like about this is I personally don't feel like if you look right now in public contracts for abyssal mods, they're just ridiculous. Like there's no way in hell I'm going to pay 2.5 billion for something that's just a sliver better, you know? But with this, I'll throw in 100K. You never know, right? It seems more approachable from a value sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I would never pay that much, but 100K, whatever.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I feel the same way with abyssal mods. Like, anytime I go to look for one, be like, I could really use a nice point on my interceptor or something. You try to navigate the sea of wide breadths of prices that you could pay for very similar mods. It's very difficult to understand. Am I paying a good price for this? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's still going to be priced by the seller, right? So it's still going to be, you know, monstrous. And no matter what price they deemed as what it's worth, they're going to add 10% onto that, the 5% in ISK taxes, and then the 5% in hypercore taxes, right? So they're going to add 10% to that, probably another little extra, you know. But it allows people to have a chance. Well, I don't see what's so bad in it. But another interesting point about it, and somebody asked in chat, and I think CCP Cognac told them, is there a way to disable this in game? And there is. I think customer service or somebody can disable it for you in game. So if you have a problem, I mean, honestly, you're a grown ass man. Like, get it shut off and just don't worry about it. I'll sell this stuff for you. I'm good. I'll be all right like that. Extra 10%.
I think it's important that there's a way to shut it off. There are, the summer blink, people had problems. There was stories out there. So it's good if if you're not good with gambling or you got that sort of issue, just have it shut off and it doesn't exist to you and everything's fine.
Yep, I agree. I mean, it's basically kind of like public contracts, but you can just buy a little piece of it, right?
Yes, Ron is a streaming madman. I think you've been streaming all day. Yeah.
I started streaming at I think 10 or 11, I think, and then I streamed to 4 or 5. Well, I wasn't gonna do anything, but then they, sideswiped me.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, what? Gambling? What? Wait, what? I was gonna just roam around, killed, and smart bombed up in Tribute, by the gate campers. That's what I was gonna do. But no, they have to hit me with the gambling stuff, and I'm like, oh, let's do this.
Love it.
So yeah, so that was super cool. So other things with the patches. Other things with the patch.
Yeah, a lot of things on the patch notes.
How are you feeling about the medium autocannons?
Steps in the right direction. I kind of I like that they played with the T2 ammo for Mimitar and autocannons, right? Because that was a big complaint for many years. This T2 ammo didn't offer you much, right? In the way of improved performance or anything. So a lot of people just didn't bother using them at all. But a little bit of love, and it's getting there. I don't know if I'm ready to bust out my autocannon, Tempest fleet yet. But what do you think?
So one thing that I think Rise was explaining, during Vegas was, he was really kind of describing the agile development and making small changes, but just doing it constantly until you find that sort of right place. And what I really like about this is that I think they've really hit, one of the problems, like you just mentioned, right? T2 ammo and, just some minor tweaks. And I don't think that this is, it was kind of underwhelming in a sense, but it's in the right direction. And what I like is that it's not ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
You don't see swarms of Cinnaballs now, right?
Oh, yeah. So the thing is about these changes, all of them are very iterative, right? A little notch up here, a little notch down there, let's see where it falls. So like you mentioned, the Cinnabal got a little bit of a hit too. They took away some of the Angel warp acceleration, which hurts my heart because I love warping faster than any interceptor known to man in my Cinnabal. But they took away the warp acceleration, which is a big part of its speed, but it's not going to really change the way it flies that much. And I think a lot of these changes are not quite there, but I think if they look at it again, and come back to it, as long as they come back to it and notch the numbers up or down, that iteration is good.
Yep. Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel towards them, right? It's it's great because the fall off, I think at 20 kilometers it's plus 10% damage, and then at 30 kilometers it's plus 20% damage. But at that kind of fall off, your chance to hit is so low anyway. It's not really that sort of game breaking, but I think it's great. And then like you just mentioned, they reduced the warp speed, the Macario, the Angels, right? And one of the things about that is I think they did that to get it in line with buffs that recently just happened, right?
Yeah.
That were across the board.
Angel ships are just stupid. Once we buffed the warp speed in general, and it had that
Yep.
insane acceleration. I mean, my Citadel is going 10 AU a second and gets there instantly.
Right.
It was a little bit broken.
Yeah. So I thought that was great, and then also the Tempest fleet issue with the increase in rate of fire. I think again, I mean, it's a significant buff to that particular ship and to that particular trait. Probably not enough, but you know what? It's getting it there, right? It's kind of moving up a little bit.
I love the rate of fire bonuses because one of my favorite ships to
Mm-hmm.
fly around solo is the Scythe fleet with autocannons on it. And the Scythe fleet already had that
Mm-hmm.
rate of fire bonus, and I love like the machine gun aspect of an autocannon when it's got that bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Just an
Mm-hmm.
oppressive
Mm-hmm.
rate of fire, which makes it like you can just melt things down with it. So I like
Yep.
autocannon's role as being that oppressive like machine gun style like constant DPS in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just needs more though. It needs more projection. I know they buffed it a little bit with the guns and the ammo,
Mm-hmm.
but I think they still need to look at letting it project a little further.
And the Tempest fleet issue is like one of those ships. I kind of feel like it's almost like a high sec ship. It's great for PvE for mission running. So and I haven't done that in years. So I'm thinking that it's probably maybe a little bit more suited for that. I don't know.
Yeah, so many
I
times people try to make it like a good arty platform or like some
right,
cheaper version of a Macarial, but it just never gets there.
right. I did try the Bellicose, so I did fit
Yeah.
that up.
So how'd that go, Ron?
Um, I fit it up. Now, what's interesting is that the explosion velocity only applies to heavy missile and heavy assault missile.
Uh-huh.
And that combined with the target painter, it's not quite at light missile levels, but it did pretty well. I mean, considering I've flown a Bellicose, I think maybe once in 3 or 4 years, and I think that was by accident because I thought it was a rapier. I don't. So I mean, I can say that it's not going to be the clearing tackle god that is the Osprey Navy, but it's getting there. It's nice. It's a nice little bonus with the TP. It's getting it on.
Yeah, but the problem with the Bellicose is you look at it and it explodes, right? It just
Mm-hmm.
has
Mm-hmm.
zero
Yeah.
tank at all.
Right.
Like so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you got what you can. I guess you can make this thing into sort of like a glass cannon. When you can, make these hams apply like a light missile. That's pretty cool, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just not what it needed. I don't think. I think with that TP bonus, it already had decent application. It just needed a little love on the tank side, so it didn't like evaporate
Mm.
instantly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it surprised me. I mean, especially when I was using precision ammo, right? So precision heavy assaults, it did pretty well in comparison. But again, I haven't flown the thing in forever.
Yeah.
I have not tried the Rifter. Um, I saw someone. I think someone was streaming it, but I haven't tried it. But it's interesting that they added a new rate of fire bonus to it. So
Yeah.
I don't
Again,
know.
it's in line with what they want, right? They want like I
Hmm.
haven't run the numbers, but I assume the damage output is probably similar or the same, right? So they took away
Hmm.
the straight up damage per level and added rate of fire per
Hmm.
level. So if you do the math, it's probably the same. It has a different way of applying the damage, which is cool. But
Hmm.
again, the Rifter is another ship like in the Mimitar line, and a lot of Mimitar ships suffer from this, right? They're just like meh. They're okay at stuff, but they're not great at anything, right?
Hmm.
A Rifter doesn't is not a go-to ship for any role. Like you get into it, it does okay in a frigate fight, but it's not a great tackler. It's not, especially fast. It doesn't do a great damage. It doesn't tank much, right? It's just a meh ship. Like so, I don't know. A swapping bonus damage for for rate of fire, I don't think helps the ship. It just puts it in line with what they want out of autocannons, right?
Right. Yeah, and it is a little bit more of that machine gun, right? A little bit more, it's firing faster. Yeah. Speaking of amazing Minmatar ships, what about our boy the Munin? What did they do to our boy?
Well, I think everyone was expecting the bat, right? Everyone was expecting a nerf bat. I heard a lot of people, I think Elise even said, we were expecting a power grid nerf, right, and a speed nerf, because those are the two things that really make it oppressive. It's fast, and you could fit those artillery guns on it very easily without any power mod, really. So we were expecting it to be like taken down a notch and make it harder to fit those guns and slower. But that's not really what we got. What we got was a mild speed decrease, which is like 100 meters a second slower, which is ridiculous. A SIG increase, which, man, I don't know. I don't see that. And then it knocked off some of the range, and I can appreciate that because the Munin does project really well for the ship size that it is. But again, 7.5% as for 10%, you're knocking what, 10K off what you normally have to. I mean, which could be significant, but I don't see how any of this changes the way the ship flies much at all.
Right. I can tell you that these particular like little, I guess, shaving off of the stats, those are the strong attributes, right? The speed, the SIG, and their optimal range. It's just the speed. I don't see it as that much, right? It's just a little bit, and if they did it to like 25%, obviously that would kill the ship. But what is this, like 5%, if that, 15?
Yeah, it's like
it's not that much.
100 and change meters per second slower.
Right. That's not much.
So look at a fleet fight in Munins. What do most people do? They like anchor on their lead, right? The FC usually, or some designated anchor. And if you watch,
anchor on the monitor.
Yeah, if you watch most fleets, you're never at top speed, right? Unless you're running away, right? If you're like, all right, burn out of the bubbles in GTFO, that's different. But if you're in a fight, rarely is the Munin at top speed. So to shave 100 meters a second off the top is not really changing the way the ship flies.
And I would say that that's absolutely true. And the thing is that in the Munin comp, you're cutting down the speed anyway, because if you have a Claymore,
you got other stuff.
They haven't hit their, they haven't done the dose, right? Dose 4. So you're going to cut the speed down to about 2,000 to 2,100, no matter what, right? That's the top that you want to go. And, I know Elo's a big fan of never going over 2,000 because you'll just, out-vector yourself.
Yeah, you out-track yourself, yep.
So, right around 2,000, 2,100 is where I would say anyway. So that speed doesn't really affect me that much. The signature radius is interesting, but with the Munins, right, these are, tier 2 links, right? This is the maximum everything. So it's not that much of a difference, right?
Yeah, and what were you looking to fix? Like, most people try to fight Munins, Eagle's a popular choice. But an Eagle's at range. I don't think an Eagle had trouble applying to a Munin, right? At range when you're
Right.
So, what are you looking? What ship are they looking to have hit a Munin better? A battleship class? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. But I can say that when I saw the numbers, I didn't race to Paifa.
No, right? I think everybody looked at it and was like, "Oh, all right, we're good. We're good."
All right.
Everybody's like, keep the Munins in the hangar.
I just kept scrolling. Are there new skins in this patch or what? What's going on?
I will say there was a bunch of FCs being like, all right, we're good. Everyone keep the Munins in your hangar. We're good. We'll fly them tomorrow. Like,
But I can tell you that, Eliminacion is asking about the hack doctrines, and I can tell you that with every little small step backwards the Munin takes, the eagle stands up taller.
Yeah, the eagle soars a little bit higher. That's true.
Just a little bit higher. Yeah, and I think you mentioned a little bit earlier where the T2 ammo for autocannons getting a little bit of a buff, and that T2 ammo has always been so mediocre in comparison, right, to the faction and to the others. That
Yeah.
I think a little, and maybe this is just the first step, right, in the iteration.
Yeah, I mean, who the hell
I
has
think it's great.
ever, what FC has ever been like load hail? Like, uh, man, what am I shooting a Titan, bro? Like no one calls for hail, right?
Load hail. I can't even remember even saying that ever.
Well,
Load hail.
hail is so bad because for one, it's damage
Yeah.
locked, right? And
Yep.
and it gives you the tracking is horrendous. Like over a damage specific type, hail offers really nothing for you. So tracking speed improvement was a big problem with hail, and 5% increase is good. I don't think it. I still don't see anybody being like, "All right, guys, load hail on this one," but it's
Load hail.
it's getting there.
It's actually just funny just even hearing that load hail.
Right? Like when have you ever heard anybody be like, "All right, guys, load hail, we're going in"? Like no.
Right, right.
And barrage, a little more
Yeah,
projection.
exactly.
That's good.
Yeah, I like it. So now the assault damage control. I didn't even think about this, but yeah, I mean, I think that's great.
Yeah, this is a good change.
It is a very strong module.
It is.
And it gives you that insane buff, and it doesn't burn out, right? It just has a timer. So I think it's great. You're toning it down a little bit. Still not going to, get through the alpha doctrines, right? But that's okay because the alpha doctrines, are such a waste anyway, because, when you're hitting with 150 or 160, and if you figure like 75% of those hitting, you're going to burn through it anyway. So yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, this is something that needed to be looked at, in my opinion, as well, because the assault frigates in particular are just so good, like to the point where they're putting the destroyer class out of relevance a lot, right? Like the Kikimora is just dominated by retributions, right? Because of that assault damage control, and like hacks too in the cruiser class, like even if you're looking at T3 cruisers, the assault damage control is so powerful that you don't really want to look at anything else because you want that, right?
Right.
So 10% is a good hit though. That's one that's pretty heavy.
What do you think about a T2 assault frigate Kikimora? What do you think that would look like?
A T2 like assault destroyer?
Well, like an assault frigate, right? But a Kikimora.
And you could put an ADC on it?
Yeah.
I think it would be too oppressive.
That's always the argument, right, about the Triglavian ships, that they're too expensive and that they're too op, right? And I like both of those. I like it being a little op, and I also like that it's more expensive, right? Because if it was in line, no one would fly them, right? No one's going to pay extra for that,
Well, yeah, I'm always a big fan. If you're going to pay up for the ship, it should perform like you paid for it. But I also think the trigs are very well balanced right now. They're very good at what they do, right? It's especially good for a 10 to 15 man small gang roam. Kikis are great for that because the utility highs are huge for a small gang. Because what does a small gang fleet miss a lot of times. They get like a tackle, they get a few logi and some DPS, and that's all they got because that's all the pilots they have. So they're missing that utility that you need to like push you over the edge. Those damage multipliers, the newts, remote reps, stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
All those things add, iteratively to a small gang, and it fits so
Mm-hmm.
well in there. And the supply is controlled through the abyss, so they're OP in that small gang region, but you try to scale it up and it
Mm-hmm.
becomes too expensive to run, and the weapon lends it to itself not being great once you get past a certain critical mass, right? You don't want
Yeah.
30 Ikaturses versus 30 Munins. That's the Ikis are going to get evaporated. Um,
Right.
so I love that position that they're in. Like, and it can fight up hull class. So when CCP complains that nullsec needs to be more dangerous, that super cap umbrellas are too OP, these ships have equalized that playing field more than people know. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Freaking Volta comes through. They're melting a fully tanked Nyx or Hell before help could get there a large majority of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's because that Icky and the weapon lends itself to that.
And the one thing that it really helps with small gangs is the thing that small gangs never have, right? Which is links. And we have that Drekovac document or doctrine, and what I love about that doctrine is, we put in the doctrine all of the links, right? So it's like, what links do you want me to run? Like all of them, like
Yeah,
every link.
it's
It's
a good.
great.
Yeah, it's a battle cruiser. You're right. You can run links. Yep.
Just love it, love it. Yeah, I think it's yeah, I think it's great. I think those are in a good place.
Yeah. Then we had some additions. We had the T2 set of those implants that ups the max damage on the trig guns, but slows
Yeah, the
down the ramp.
mimesis.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And then the
Yeah,
Triglavian dreadnought.
ooh, doggies.
Probably the most
I
anticipated ship we've had in a while, right?
right, most anticipated. And also, I just saw, that on Sissy they were knocking down the damage a lot, right?
Yeah,
I saw in
huge,
Hobo Leaks.
huge. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
huge damage nerf.
it was pretty ridiculous. Like, I'm okay with trig ships being OP, but that damage number was insane. It was like
It was,
50,000
and
or
then,
something.
well, so I did some Pyfa with it, some Pyfa warrioring with it, and what I could get with sort of halfway decent, I did like 2 damage mods, and I could get 50k DPS fully ramped at 150k.
Did you
Yeah,
try
that
it with
was
the
way out of control.
yeah, out of control? But did you try it with the implant set too?
Yeah, that was with the implant set and sieged.
Gotcha.
Now the killer to that is it took 6 minutes to ramp up to that,
So,
like 356 seconds.
that's really interesting, right? So again, it's a Triglavian ship that's going to be exceedingly good in small numbers, killing Titans even at that kind of number range or supers. But
Absolutely.
you're not going to want to get into a dread bomb brawl with revelations, right? If
Right.
it's going to take you 6 minutes to ramp up your damage, that rev is pounding you for 6 minutes. Like, so again, I think it's balanced in that trig line. It's a little bit more expensive than your normal dread. Does huge damage. Has some utility. I was surprised, Ron. Are you surprised it only has 3 highs?
Well, I was playing around with it and I was trying to. What if you used it like a big Lashak, right? What if you spider tanked like 4 of them and you were just hitting with no siege module and you were just hitting a structure, right? Just anchored up, spider tanking and hitting a structure. But then, it depends on the cost, right? Then it's like, well, is it worth, going, that route, right? I didn't think it was. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because if you have like the standard, right, which is like a true Sancha newt on the top, and then you have the smart bomb, you have the smart bomb bonus, you the remote rep bonus. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I don't know. It's interesting.
And no hog gun iteration. Is that true?
Yeah, so there's no haul gun yet. I don't know if there ever will be one, but no haul gun yet. That's okay in my book. The one thing that, I kind of liked about, the range on it was right now there's only one dread that fits or that hits past 100, and that's the Rev. So that's what you have to use if you want to, drop at a sniper range, right, for the Sino and hit. So you have to use the Rev. You have no other options, or Titans, right?
Or like a Cruise Phoenix you can use, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like a Cruise Phoenix. Yep, that would work. So I really liked that it could hit that far. The tracking on it, though, was equivalent to an Avatar. It was 0.07, whereas an Avatar with like drop and the Ogdens will get to like 0.09. So it was equivalent to about an Avatar, a little bit better maybe, or a little bit worse. So the tracking wasn't that great. The haul guns, I think once they get the capital guns in line with what their kind of design thinking is with it, then the haul guns might come out, and that'd be cool.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and there's some.
I've been running those missions, right? Not the missions, but the new one, right?
Yeah.
The observatories.
How'd that go? I haven't touched it yet.
Well, I mean, how do you think me and Hysek running that went? I mean, just take a guess. I'm going to give you two choices: failure or 2 times failure.
Yeah.
Lost a couple of Rodivas, all good. It's interesting though, right? So it's a beacon that you warp to. When you warp to the beacon, then there's 2 gates. There's a Triglavian gate, and then there's the normal acceleration gate. If you kill the critters on the Triglavian gate and then you take that through, then you're met by a couple other critters and the enemy dread. And then there's like some posts and things around that I don't understand how it's done yet. Supposedly the parts are somewhere around in there, or they drop from somewhere or something. I haven't gotten them yet, and I've been streaming, so I have no idea what's going on. I'm ready to buy though.
Yeah, so you want a Zernitra? Is that how you say it? Zernitra?
Yeah, the Zernitra. But I don't want one to be a hanger queen, right? Like I want to drop them. I want to drop 3 or 4.
So what do you imagine? What would be your target using a Zenitra?
Sino and Hibs.
Yeah, so you're thinking Sino and Hib goes down, you drop 3 or 4 Zenitras at 130k, and you burn down the Sino and Hib. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
And but to be honest though, like the meta would be that I wouldn't even siege them, right? I would drop them, and they would just be bait, and I would have faxes there just to rep them. Right?
Yeah, because everyone's gonna
and
go.
Like they could try to shoot or whatever, but I wouldn't really. I would just use them for bait, for at least until people get used to them.
For sure.
But the other really cool thing would be dropping them on a structure, dropping 3 or 4 on a structure, and just letting them roll. It's just when you start to talk about triage, you need to kind of fit it haul, right? Which is you need to have self reps, or it's just going to die.
Right. So a popular way to siege structures now is to use active rep revelations, right? So I think this would be a better version of that, right? If you active rep the Zenitra,
yep,
and put it on a Fortizar and just started shooting it, people have to react, right? Like a Fortizar has a real hard time putting down even one single rev that's like properly active tanked. So like one of these bad boys on your Fortizar, and you're gonna have to do something about it.
Yeah, and the slot layout, right? 3 high slots. You commented on that. The 4 mid slots. I did 2 optimals, right?
Yeah, it's like a rev probably. Yeah.
Yep, and then 8 low slots, which is strong. That is very strong.
Strong.
2 damage, 2 self reps, 2 tank, and I put, just for the meta of it, I put a the hull energizer. Just, because the things are going to just be targeted, but we were just kind of playing around with it.
Sure.
I think it'll be really fun, especially when we get, half a dozen. I think they were saying that the cost, they wanted it to be around, which would be nice.
Yeah, I think that would be in line, right? Like 2.5 times a normal dread in cost.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm liking it. It's just, that ramp up time, right? That's going to be the killer.
Yeah, well that's what puts it in a specific role though, right? You're not going to be dread bombing with these things, like not against other dreads.
Right.
Like you want to get into a dread fight,
Right.
like 50 on 50, you're in trouble against Revelations, right? But for the things you're talking about, I think there's some neat little stuff that you can use these ships for, and that would be their role. And that's what we need: more spice, more tools,
Right.
tools that do specific things, not just a ship like the Gila that just does everything, right?
Right.
This is a tool in your tool belt.
And the interesting thing about the ramp up, right? So if it's like a 6-minute ramp up, that's 2 siege cycles just right off the bat.
That's true.
Whereas 1 siege cycle, you're already, nervous,
That's
about
right.
how much damage they're going to put on you. So 2 siege cycles minimum just to hit that top ram. So,
That's what I mean. Like, how many dreads live past 2 siege cycles in any type of engagement?
Yeah. Even in defense, they still die pretty quick. There's so much damage.
Yeah. Very cool, though.
The other thing, and I actually don't have a screenshot of it, but I'm sure everyone's seen it. The Black Friday login rewards, and it's using the new sort of graphics that I saw with the Korean client, which was really cool. 5 days. The first day today was 275K of skill, and of skill points. And I really think these little things like this are just cool. I think they're just extra. They're fun. They're even better when they have skins, obviously. But super fun just to be able to log in and get things like that. And
yeah, I mean, say what you want about these campaigns, but they work, right? I even see my own guys logging in and making sure they're doing whatever it is. I got to go shoot my rats for today. I got to go, do whatever it is to get your skill points. People log in, and then some of them stick around, some of them log right back off, but people, hey, they touch base, they hit corp chat, and you're like, oh, gee, man, I haven't seen you in a while, and you get into a little conversation. They're like, hey, what have you been up to? Oh, we got in this great fight. Maybe they stay, maybe they don't, but they logged in and they talk to you.
Right. And the other thing, I mean, kind of a funny kind of side story is I saw Johnny Pugh on the last, I think it was like last Christmas, the really big login rewards. And, and I haven't seen, or talked to Johnny Pugh in years. And I asked him, why he was back, and he's like, for the login.
Yeah, it
So
works.
I'm like, oh, here we go.
Obviously CCP knows it works too, otherwise they wouldn't keep doing these things, right? But, there's some naysayers out there that are like, this is stupid, but I think it's wonderful. It's been really great.
Yeah, and Johnny Pugh, I've seen him, and he's slowly working his way back in.
That's great. That's great. It's good to see him back.
Is there anything else? I think that's all that I can think of.
Yeah, are there any notable news items? I know we had...
Oh, there was something. Oh, and this is, I was camping it out, and it was Eternity Space, right? Super fun. And, the NPC Satoyo went through a bunch of drama a couple of months ago when they changed the size of the BPC. And I love what's happening now, which is a big conflict driver, right? And, Volta brought in a bunch of sabers. And if you guys have never run an NPC Satoyo, basically Titans are on grid and they're shooting the NPC Satoyo and they're dying, right? And when it gets to the point where, 50% in armor, you warp off, get reps, and then you come back and you continue to do it. And what they did was on it was the armor timer, they just brought in sabers to bubble them, right? And the sabers just bubbled the Titans couldn't get out, and the NPCs did the rest. Hundreds of Balgorns, hundreds of, Ashimus, Crewers, everything you could imagine. And then, so, of course, I saw that the aftermath of that was 2 Titans dead and 5 faxes. So it was, it was rough. All the timers, so I went back to the timer the next day, and up to their shenanigans again. They didn't drop bubbles, but they did drop some dreads, and they brought a freighter in to try to steal the loot.
I mean, I love this, right? If this isn't an Eve story, I don't know what is, right? Because I think I heard that those guys saw Volta there prior, right? And then Volta figured they'd come back, and they logged those dictors off right there. So it's sort of like this whole trap. And then the way the rat mechanics work is, the more you bring, the more they bring, right? So as they're responding with faxes, the rat spawn just keeps increasing and increasing. Like I saw on your stream today, there's like hundreds and hundreds of rats. So all that Volta had to do was keep their dictors alive, and they lost a lot of dictors to the rats too. But man, what you can't do anything besides, what I would have tried to do? I would have tried to use bombers to bomb off the bubbles rather than try to respond with faxes, because as you saw, it didn't help.
Well, and I saw that they had like 4 Titans on the final timer, and I saw that the Titans were smart bomb fit, which is great. Right, the officer smart bomb, I think the Dracula or the Kelms get out to like 10.5 kilometers. That's great for clearing bubbles. But what I really liked was right as the Satoyo was getting ready to die, the bad guys dropped like 4 dreads, and they warped in a freighter, right? At the same time, the Satoyo was in their space. The good guys brought in a rapier, I think it was, and then they sinoed in everything. They brought in the hammer, and I always love seeing the hammer drop. That is so much fun, And I think they dropped something like 40-something Nixon, Titan. They were ready, and they killed the freighter. There was no BPC in the freighter. They killed the freighter, but it did drop an officer mod, but the officer mod got killed in the freighter. And then they killed the dreads. And I say, excellent. Bring it on. More conflict drivers. Love it. Keep it up.
I mean, what you got here was several days of story and content, right, over the Satoyo. So it's awesome.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think that's all that I can think of. Unless you have something?
I don't know. The only other thing I think that happened in last week is you had Dirt and Glitter disband, which is a long time.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And D&G, I think they've been around for, like 7 years?
Yeah.
Mostly low-sec faction warfare. And, people just, go through times that play. And he had handed off 3 or 4 times, and every time he would come back and it would almost dead. And he just said, you know what, this time I'm just going to take it. And if he comes back someday, he'll revive it. And if not, okay. I really like that, because I like it going, like the captain kind of going down with the kind of, but I like just closing something and then us being able to talk in history, and talk about like snuffed out, right, or whatever. These entities, and they're gone, and the people will go. People want to play, right? But it's just this entity is gone. I don't know. Maybe it's but even he said it's probably right on, man. Do your thing.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't agree more. I wish them luck.
All right. So the last week we forgot that. Do you have anything for that week?
Gee, no, I didn't really prepare anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go to my old fallback, which is if you drag the ship out from the hangar into outside of the window, you automatically get in the ship.
Yeah, I always forget about that.
I learned that from Fusion, Jason Fusion, the ganker, because he would have the 20 windows for his catalyst, and he would be flipping between them, and he would just. So every time I show that on stream, someone's like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, you're clipping a little bit,
there you go.
Ron. I'm not sure if your mic moved away, but you're clipping a little bit. But yeah, that's one of the one maybe I could follow up with that and say there's always a million ways to do everything in Eve, right? Even getting in your ship.
Mm-hmm.
You could right click it and make active. You can drag it. You can double click it. You can do all kinds of stuff. That goes for navigation. There's a whole other, the circle wheel navigation that you can do. And there's all kinds of ways to make yourself comfortable in Eve, whatever floats your boat.
Yep. Well, that's all I have. So I guess from both of us, I hope all of you out there have an amazing, and call your parents.
Good advice.
We'll see you next week on Talking in Station.
Good night, guys.